Dylan Cooper, welcome to the Frother Show. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. So, Dylan Cooper, you've raced mountain bikes for as long as I can remember. I remember turning up at Canberra for some of my first races when I got to Australia and seeing this little skinny guy just used to whip my ass. And and getting you in today was really all about understanding your intro into biking, and mountain biking especially, really, because obviously that's the area that you've spent most of your time and that's where your froth is, isn't it, in mountain biking?
Yeah.
So, what was the start for you? When did cycling start, let alone mountain biking?
Well, you wouldn't believe me, but I used to play rugby, right?
Oh, hey!
So one of the guys on my team had this mountain bike. He rocked up to training, and I go, "What the hell is that? It's got fat tires, fat tubes, these beefy forks." And I go, "I'm used to my 10-speed racer. What's that thing? I want to ride one." And he goes, "Yeah, there's this mountain biking thing, right?" And this is, I can't even, I think it was 96 or 94 actually. Yeah, 94.
Yeah.
And I go, "Screw rugby, I'm going to do this."
Yeah.
Actually, that was obviously that was after I rode one. And that was that fully rigid cantilever brakes era.
I remember the days.
Yeah, just that raw mountain biking. And once I rode one, I just went, this is awesome, out in the forest. Just the speed element really attracted me. And yeah, I played, I think, tennis, rugby and soccer at the same time, ditched all of them, went straight to mountain biking.
But had you ridden a road bike or raced or done any training really with road biking before then, or was it just something you used to commute and
Yeah, I just rode to school as a kid. That's it, just to school and back. I think it was 7k each way.
Yeah.
I got adventurous with drains and riding through stuff. I'm a racer, and it held up luckily. And that was my own exposure to bikes. So when I saw this mountain biking thing that you got to ride single track and over rocks and roots and stuff, like at Isaac's Ridge here in Canberra.
Yep, so you're Canberra, you've always been Canberra, born and bred here?
Born in South America, but I've been in Canberra since I was 5, so I've always ridden here. And luckily really, because we got so many good trails. We've always had the nature parks within the town that you can easily get to. So as a kid, you can just pop over to the forest. You don't have to get your parents to drive you there or venture out. So yeah, pretty lucky.
And it's always been, hasn't it? Canberra's always been an incredibly cycle-friendly town, really. It's great on the roads. You've got little lanes, and mountain biking's always been just superb.
Yeah, exactly. The bike paths mainly. As a kid, you just get on a bike path. It'll take you to some trail.
Yeah. So you had started, because I remember. So I'm going back because I remember the day, right, when I started was, I think 87. Right, 87, and it was a mongoose, fully rigid, tiny little tubes, and it just used to beat the crap out of you.
That's the one. Did you have toe clips and straps?
Toe clips and straps, yeah.
Lethal, right? Lethal.
Yeah, toe clips and straps.
I never learned the hard way how bad those were, but snagging on things. They were just horrendous. But yeah, same style of bike. I had a Pace. So British.
I remember Pace. Yeah, I used to race against a few of the boys in the UK that were sponsored by Pace.
Yeah, I probably saw them in mags and went, Pace is pretty cool.
Yeah,
got a hold of one.
They were dead cool.
Yeah, and all steel. I think they're still around. Fully steel bike. Yeah, I think I was really pumped when I got some Panaracer smoke tyres, and that were the thing. Just things like that. It's gone so far, right?
Oh, it's ridiculous. Yeah, I remember when they got the Gervin created the flexi stem. Yep. And it moved about that much.
Yeah, I wanted one, man. I definitely would have bought one if I had money. But yeah, it's funny, innovation in that time was so just out there, I suppose. Yeah. But it did, lead to so many good things.
Yeah, no, it certainly did. It was a phenomenal time to be involved. And it came from me. I was like 10 years. I was racing BMXs, so there was a couple of years of doing that, and then I didn't go. There was nothing. And then the mountain bike, it was like a big BMX, wicked. So that led you're riding and going to trails around Canberra. And what made you think about starting a race?
Well, that was really all you had. I mean, there weren't groups going out. No one mountain biked really. It was, you'd be lucky to meet someone that did it. So it wasn't really a thing, right? So as a club, someone said to me, I think the bike shop said, yeah, there's a mountain bike club, and that was Canberra Off-Road Cyclists.
Yeah.
And I pictured this golf club sort of thing, like you go to there's a little clubhouse or something, you just go around some little trails, but really it was just more of a virtual thing, I suppose, to start with, where you could sign up and get newsletters, and they told you sort of the places you could ride, and then it formed into more of a race thing. So as soon as I found out you could race, because I was always pretty competitive from when I was born, like just give it to me, I'm out there. And I think the first race that I did at Isaac's Ridge, I just took about 10 wrong turns. I don't think there were arrows those days. You just sort of had to know the tracks or
navigate
something.
your way around.
Yeah, exactly. So I found my way to the finish eventually, but I don't know what I came. And then the second race I did, I might just follow some people who know where they're going. And then I ended up crossing the line first, and that competitive side of me sort of wanted more, Yeah, definitely brought out the mongrel in me, and that other sports sometimes brought out, and but it was in a more controlled way. It wasn't like this contact sport where you're sort of more aggressive. It was more just put it into the bike, and it's you and the trail, you versus the trailer, rather than just against other people. And I like that element. Yeah. And those days, as you know, it was just mountain biking. You could do trials, downhill, cross country, slalom. So dual slalom was big at that time. So that was about 95. Sort of end of 94 into 95, I got more into it. And I think pretty much after just a couple of races, I went up to Thredbo and did a national race there. Yeah. And I remember I had flat pedals with sneakers, and my shoelaces came untied at the beginning, and I rode the whole race with my shoelaces catching in all the drivetrain and stuff, and just went through. And I don't know what I came, maybe 5th or something. And I think my free hub stuffed up. I used WD-40 to lube my chain.
Yeah, classic.
So it all just ate it, but I still had a blast. I just couldn't get back soon enough, right? So even though things didn't go smoothly as a youngster, I just always wanted to go back the next day if I could,
Yeah, and I back in the day, and again, most people wouldn't imagine it now, especially the younger guys and girls coming through, is that we used to do cross country, downhill, would all be on the same bike.
Yeah,
you'd all do it on the same bike.
I don't think we didn't even put our seats down, did we?
No, you used to do it all on the same bike.
That's the thing, and people can't imagine it. And I don't go around going, back in my day, but I think a lot of people lose out in a way. Those battles with the bikes that they weren't so reliable, they were heavy. You didn't have bikes specifically made for those disciplines, and you learn a lot about how to handle a bike, I reckon.
Yeah.
And how to fall. Getting bucked up, narrow bars, things slipping.
Yeah, that's right.
Just twitchy, right? And rigid forks, terrible tires. I think that's that, and I think trials with the equipment, and the fact I did a bit of trials, mucking around and getting that slow speed skill. They were the two biggest things I think that helped me develop some skill without any help.
Yeah. And look, that's something we'll go on to, and I want to chat in a bit more detail with the skills-based stuff and Ride Technics sort of down the track. So you'd started racing, you're having a lot of excitement and fun, nurturing that desire to go out and flog yourself and also race people. But you're an elite rider, and you raced a lot of big races all over the show. So, what was, where did you race? What sort of teams I know, but what sort of teams and that did you race for, and whereabouts in the world did you get to race?
Well, I think within about a year I went from winning nationals as a junior and all the national series races that year. Straight away I was overseas to the world, and I didn't actually think it'd lead to going overseas and racing World Cups and stuff. But back then, like they just started again now, the Junior World Cups. There were no under 23s. So the races are massive, as in the fields in each race were massive. So first race was in Lake Annecy in France.
Yeah, wicked.
And I've been back a few times since because I love that place, but it's probably a bit of nostalgia too with the first place I went overseas. Raced in Houffalize in Belgium.
Classic. That's an iconic place, isn't it?
Another one, exactly, and they're still around. It's amazing. But that was a few World Cups led to the Switzerland World in Châteaudet, and that was my intro to World Cup racing and World Champs. And then since then, I've been overseas. I think 7 worlds I've done now, and in a variety of places. I think mostly Europe. 2 in Australia.
Yeah.
So I've done both Cairns and Canberra.
Yeah.
And well, that's one of the things that I think I'm excited to tell people. If you get into that level of racing, it takes you to so many places, you meet so many good people. As corny as it sounds, half my friends are from overseas, and I can still keep in touch with them. It just connects you with people.
Well, that's right. You share a common bond, don't you? You're all there because you've all got the same interests and passions, so therefore there's going to be a connection there.
Exactly, and mountain bikers are mountain bikers, right?
Yeah.
Usually friendly. They're sort of usually outdoor people, and you get that connection with a like-minded person, and that's, I think, deeper than just someone you meet on the street.
I know that towards the end of your serious racing, you actually were with Trek, and you spent time over in Japan.
Yeah, 3 years in Japan. I'd pretty much retired, and then my mate Noguchi, who raced for Trek over there, used to come here for the summers and stay at my house with James Williamson and Sean Lewis. We'd have sort of the house there all together. Nogu would come. So he sort of retired after that stint in Australia with his Aussie riding, and then I was sort of pretty much about to hang it up because I was done with World Cups. I'm like, I'm not going to win World Cups. It's too hard doing half seasons and trying to get results with just sort of dabbling. Yeah. So it's like either fully commit or just sort of do the local stuff. And I sort of went, that'll probably do. I'm just going to have fun with it and race locally. And then Noga rings up and says, can you race for Trek in Japan? We need a racer. And the offer was good. And I go, well, I was going to get that deal in Europe. And I go, I'm probably keen. When do you want to do it? And he's, in 2 weeks. And I think I just had 3 months off through the winter. So I went over there, no fitness. And to be honest, I fell in love with Japan straight away. It was just
wicked place.
As you know, the culture, the novelty of it's so good. I didn't care too much about the racing because it was just so cool, but I enjoyed the racing just because it was a new thing there. Didn't suit me at all, but I went back. I think the next year I went back with some fitness and won the series, and the third year I sort of, to be honest, I went back just because I loved Japan again. So I did the 3 years, and that was a good stint, and then I sort of eased back even more, and by the time I got back, actually, that was when mountain biking had sort of while I was away, it changed into that 24-hour racing marathon stuff.
Which I don't know what stupid people would want to do that.
That's what I said when I went over there. What, 2 or 3 times the distance?
Why would I want to do that?
But it was a thing, right? All these weirdos racing through the night, and I go, obviously it's popular. Obviously it wasn't sustainable because now it's fizzled out. But and marathons are sort of hanging in there, but not really. But I gave a few a go just based on cross country stuff, and went alright for a few years, but. That stuff catches up with if you're not training enough. It's a different thing, right? Yeah. But again, those different phases of my career I like because I do 2 or 3 years doing a totally different thing. Racing. Back to the beginning. Those days, cross country and downhill, you just did all that on one bike. Then full on cross country racing with World Cups and stuff. And I did miss the downhill straight away. I wanted to do both. And when I'd see, you go to race with both events, I'd look at the downhills and go, can't I do both, And it's just unrealistic, right?
Yeah, well, when you've done so much training, the last thing you want to do is axe yourself then on a DH bike. And then you've just, for 4 months of absolutely hard slog, have just sort of gone.
Spot on the mentality. Yeah. That's exactly what stopped me. You just got to be sensible, right? Too much at stake. And then, I think it was 6 years off I had at one point with chronic fatigue. And that whole time I really, missed out. I wanted to get back in it, but that just made me hungry to get back into it. And that's, I think, why I'm still around, is because I had that break when I didn't want to. And I know a lot of guys in that time that burnt out or just had done their stint, right? And I was sort of raring to go again, had a second career. So I was keen as... got straight back into cross country, and it was certainly not as big as I remembered back in the Cadell Rowney days, but it was, and while I was off the bike, actually, I think it went down to pretty much nothing. It was just dead, and that was the MTBA cycling, Cycling Australia, whatever they used to be called, that split, and that really killed the sport. And then I missed that whole time, which I don't get into politics, so I'm sort of glad. And then when I got back into the sport, it changed. So, but I was keen to do World Cups again. Went to Worlds a few times, and then then it was back to that marathon stuff. And then after that, as you know now, it's enduro, right? There's more of this gravity element to it. So I'm glad that I've seen all the different stages of it and actually raced in pretty much all of them.
Brilliant. And you're out of all of them, because I mean, obviously you've travelled massively and raced loads of different. What's your favourite trail? What's your favourite place to just go and shred your bike? It might be a race trail, but your favourite place?
I think you can't go past Whistler. When I got back into it, before I started racing again, actually, I think it was in 2004. I did 7 months in Whistler, and I just love roots and roots and bridges. Roots and bridges, just really good. So I want to get back there. Just that memory of those trails where you're always going over something. They're slippery. You don't get bored. Even magic trails in Australia, jumpy, pumpy trails, awesome berms, really groomed. And you can get bored after a while. You can switch off. In that Canadian style of riding, which I had a bit of in Japan, you're just always engaged, and there's something to keep you on your toes, and you're always improving. And that's probably another, riding in Whistler, all that North Shore stuff is something that also took me up a level in skills. I
agree. I loved Canada. I raced all the Canada Cups over there when I was prepping for the Worlds with Jimmy. Yep, and doing them when you're absolutely smashed at 4 o'clock in the morning off camber wet routes.
Yeah,
it's a different style of riding.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a different. It adds a whole other element to mountain biking that I think in Australia. I mean, down in Victoria, there's a bit of it, but I think there's just another level, often because it's wet.
Yeah, for sure. So, look, that's fantastic. I mean, and so I talked about trails. What was your favourite race?
Probably, it's hard to go past the Cairns Worlds, just because I remember, because it was local, and it was this, Jacobs had built that trail there. It was this new experience for Euros. That trail just set a new standard of trail design, and I remember the crowds there, and it was stinking hot and humid. I'll just never forget it, because I think I was so young, and going, used to all these club races that no one watches, right? Mountain biking is not really a spectator sport. That's
old spindrift.
Exactly.
Guys, as you cross the line.
Yep, just ghost town. But Cairns suddenly in Australia, and I'd raced there. I think I did one national race there the year before, where there was, I think, one person. The old that one, and then suddenly it was just a sea of people, and the downhill too had this awesome vibe to it. People packed along that trail, and just the roar in the forest, and the contrast to before. And so the Euros and North Americans came to town, and it was just, I'll never forget it.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's a great memory to have as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely superb. So with all that then, what, I know my inspirational mountain biker that was just someone that I just looked up and thought, that he is a rad dude. Who was your most inspirational mountain biker?
I'd say John Tomac.
Give it, 100%.
Yeah, Johnny T, something about him, like the American hero or whatever. And he wasn't a tool. I obviously never met him, but just the way he seemed to come across was that he was doing his thing.
Yeah.
He also mixed it up with, road, downhill, cross country, and just sort of had class or something about him. And
rode a Toga disc as well, which just sounded so good.
Yep, I did witness that. And
I have one.
Nice. That's worth probably a mint now.
Oh yeah, it would be.
The drop bars on a downhill bike, just stuff like, he just did what he thought was working for him. It wasn't. And again, I didn't meet him, but I like to think that he sort of drove the sport a bit in the way he did things, and I think it did change the sport. Obviously, there are other people like Overend and Tinker and stuff that did contribute to that.
They were massive. Back in that day, again, he was definitely mine. I was lucky enough to be at the Worlds in Bromont in Quebec when all of them were racing. Frishneck,
Nice.
Tomes, all of them. Rishi Gruel won it.
Yeah, so I remember all those names, right?
Mega race, and we all had at the end. Everyone had a massive party. We all had a food fight, so we were throwing stuff over. It was just gold. Mate.
Yeah, I didn't get to do that. But and I wonder these days whether the heroes of today, because there are plenty of legends, right?
Yeah.
Whether they're seen in the same way, because you know the sport being so young then, I think they were sort of pioneers. It wasn't just your best riders; it was something about building
100%.
the sport.
Yeah,
and that had a certain thing about it that I don't know if it probably can't happen again because it's now established.
Yeah, and look, I've seen that in all of my experience of life and all the different sports that I've delved into. Early adopters of most sports or of most things are a little bit out there, and it's always, that's the time I've always wanted to be involved. That's the time that you're just the biggest amount of froth, energy, and just it just evolves through just passion of people, and I think you're dead right there.
It makes sense, and that's you saw it, right? The heyday, the money being thrown at the sport, especially once X Games and stuff influenced gravity racing, and it's it was an exciting time.
Yeah, no, it certainly was. So you've come out of really, not racing. You just had a bit of an injury, I know, but you've how long has Ride Technics been going? Because Ride Technics is a you're involved in developing skills base for mountain biking, and I know that you're our first port of call you're the expert as far as we're concerned and the gold standard for providing skills based training. So you're obviously who we use at FTP Training, but what was the sort of turning point to say, right, this is needed, I need to do this, I need to,
Yeah, good question. I mean, it's hard to tell how long I've been doing it, because from back, as long as I felt like I could offer something to people, people would ask me, oh yeah, how did you do that? And I'd say, well, I'm not sure actually, but I'll work it out and then I'll get back to you. And then I'd give people tips wherever I thought I could help them out without giving them the wrong advice, and slowly it became, I guess, more official, like the club here does a bit of now. You've got people that are starting out coaching, and you just get involved with the club just as sort of a free social thing, and it's these skills days or clinics that you can do, or helping juniors. A lot of it was just that, and then out on the trail or races, and a lot of the time friends, and you discuss with fellow racers, what the best lines are for a race and how you execute things. And I sort of started to realise, in terms of the competitive circles, people just with fitness and skill stuff, and the mental aspect, people were too cagey, like you'd ask a fellow sort of racer, oh, what do you reckon about this? And people were just like, oh, I don't know. And then they're just keeping their cards close to their chest. And I go, why would you want to do that, where if we both discuss it and you'll both go better, right? So I started to realise, well, I'm not going to do that. I want to, give people advice if they ask for it. But having said that, usually competitors aren't going to ask for your advice, right?
No, that's right.
But I know, going back to Willow, he's one guy that we'd always chat about how can we do this better. Even though we're competitors, we'd go, let's look at the track, practice certain things for
nature of the guy.
Yeah, exactly. That's someone you could do it with, open-minded. So we'd brainstorm, and then we'd both go better, right? And as that sort of, I guess that triggered that process of going, let's break things down. How does, and I do remember one specific chat we had. It was in the evening once, kicking back, and we sort of go, I think we were talking about a trail that was real lumpy and annoying and dead. It might have been a Majura at the time, and I remember talking about.
Oh yes.
It was that terrain, right?
Oh yeah.
And I remember I said to him, I think when you go through that stuff, you sort of got to push your hands and your feet and sort of sink into the bike, and then unweight and start rocking back and forth. And essentially, we're talking about pumping, because neither of us done BMX. So we were talking about pumping, but we didn't know what pumping was. But we sort of just worked it out. And then after a while, we started to look at other aspects of riding. How the braking sequence and other things, and we'd bring it up with others, and people go, "What are you talking about? Like, go away." Why? That's just weird that we're talking about that. But it was technique, right? People just thought about pedaling. So all that sort of discussion, thought, well, yeah, there's a thing in there amongst the fitness and pedaling up a hill and it's not just pointing downhill and going. And I remember the saying back in the old school era, people go, you can only lose a race, not win it on a descent. And I just always disagreed. Because and that's why I started the skills coaching, is because I sort of started to identify things, and when your average Joe's goes, oh, you know, why am I stalling on that stuff, or why did I crash? You sort of, oh, just give us a look, and they'd have a go, and then you start analysing what they're doing and breaking it down, and you go, yeah, I've done that before, I've felt that in the past, now I think I've got a solution for that, and then it'd help, and it all just started happening. So slowly, I guess I got to this point where I'm going, well, I don't have the time to go out and help people all the time without sort of making it a thing. Yeah. And then, as you know, one thing leads to another. You've got to get insurance, and it all sort of builds. And the demand was obviously there. So a bit like ski instructing, it's now a thing, right? But there's sort of a lot of people dabbling in it without taking that step. And I wanted to just take that step and make it an official thing, and have proper systems in place, and other coaches that I can train and help me out. If you know, as you know, with coaching, it's all about that communication, and you've got to be matched up with your coach, right? Like my style wouldn't suit. It's that relationship, and your methods suit, or your way of presenting them suits someone else. So I'm not going to be suited to everyone. So I've got Rowan and Claire who coach with me, and they're different to me, right? So we offer different things, and we match riders up with them. And now it's a fully official, it's a company, right? So it's pretty funny to think back to when I sort of started maybe dabbling in it, and now it's pretty much taken off. It's exciting.
Well, that's great, because obviously it's your passion, and it is, you know, it is pretty awesome to impart the knowledge that you've gained over all those years and see other people frothing on it on the trails. And so you know, you're coaching riders, but you know, we started in that sort of XC type event, but XC now is nowhere near the same as it used to be, and there's this whole explosion of incredible bikes that can do incredible trails. So who would you say is who comes to Ride Technics to see Dylan Cooper to you know, get skills-based coaching?
Well, it all started as XC races, and then slowly that turned into, I guess, because it was in line with sort of my racing. Once, you know, after Japan, I stopped training. I raced XC based on my past fitness. That was the scene I was in. People are like, yeah, they know me and know that I make time on technical stuff, up or downhill, and they're like, can you help me out? I do sessions with them. So your XC racers trying to get faster on the descents because they climb well, but they don't descend well, for instance. Then as I eased out of XC, enduro came along, and it just suited not having fitness, right, or as much. So I started racing that, because at least the races I was doing, I was usually first, second or third, and you sort of, I guess you get a reputation at a certain level, and then I started getting some of that audience, I suppose. And because that was a new thing, like me, people who weren't as fit, maybe they work 9 to 5, it suited them, and that was the market, I think. And now that's definitely the market. I would say the biggest market at the moment is recreational or mountain riders.
Or mountain,
that's definitely the crux of it, and it's very few that race. Certainly I get plenty of people who do, but in terms of the bulk, it's like a person that loves their riding. They want to ride up the hill at their own pace and then pin it down and have fun with it. And they've got 130 to 160 mil bike.
130, 160.
Yeah, that's the bike, and they're amazing these days, right?
Oh, I mean, you can pedal well.
Yeah, exactly. So it makes sense, and I think that style of bikes changed the sport, because it can do everything at a level that, it's not, you're not going to race XC that well on them, but to ride and have fun on, they're perfect.
Yeah, they do help someone who's not as technically gifted not axe themselves on
That's right.
more difficult terrain. Yeah,
they take the edge off, and I think what's happened is what I still consider XC is now labelled as all mountain or enduro. It's still going up and down a hill. It's just not like XC racing. But to me, XC is just riding from home, or from the car park at the bike park,
Yeah.
and going up the hill, going down however many times you want, just all around the trail. So it's
Yeah.
still, to me, cross country, but that label of all mountain, for instance, I think makes it a bit more friendly, because there's no stigma attached to that racing side of it.
Yeah, not necessarily just having to wear lycra,
And of
shave
course,
your legs,
yep.
all of
So
those sorts of things.
that
yeah.
image has definitely changed. I mean, yeah, you can wear normal clothes. I mean, you see people shorts and t-shirt.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, your flannies, whatever you want, sneakers, so flat pedal sneakers. You could still go to a cafe and not be stared at. You know,
Yeah.
it's that
Yeah.
normal person is riding now, and I see now out in the trails, you got your tradies, you got your CEO, you know, newbies who see mountain biking as a thing now. It's not just your this weird sport that's alternative. I think it's gone mainstream.
Yeah, super skinny guys racing around with shaven legs and lycra.
Exactly. Yeah.
No,
It's not road racing style stuff on dirt. It's like
it's getting out there and having some fun, but also getting fit as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I like about it. People do this fun stuff, and why I focus on skills, they get fit without realising it anyway. They just don't think about it.
Yeah, that's right. So, what's your plan? What's the future with Ride Technics? Because again, I know how structured and how well you deliver your plans, and all of the work that you give riders to do post a session with you, and the breakdown of it, and the skills they can do when they're on their own to practice. How do you see that developing? Over the next few years.
Well, yeah, we do slam people with homework.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of the process, and we just want to keep refining that stuff. So we're always behind where we want to be. I'm always trying to refine methods and find better ways of presenting things and analysing things. And I think it's going to be always an ongoing thing. But the aim is to just always be ahead of the game. I don't know of anyone anywhere that's doing at least the things we're doing, how we're doing them, and the way we deliver it. And our methodology is all just our own. So it's a lot of work to just keep developing that, I suppose, and that's where the focus is on, because regardless of the type of ride, I think we just tailor it to people anyway. So we don't really market or promote much other than social media, just putting stuff on there. So the focus is not on sales and marketing, it's just about developing the systems we have, and it's always going to be about halfway to what we want it to be, because you have in your mind what it should be. I always go back to, I've got 20 years of racing in me, and what you absorb in that time or learn often the hard way in that time, it's all in your head somewhere, right? And it keeps coming out, and I'm always riding along going, this is, I know a rider who'd benefit from this. I just thought of this. These little tweaks and, seemingly trivial details, and it's always popping out, right? New things, and you've got to put that on paper, get it out there, and start helping people benefit from it. But
and about developing, obviously you generally look after an environment here within Canberra, which is a hotbed of cycling. It's got loads of trails and a lot of people, but obviously the rest of Australia would probably like a little bit of Ride Technics love. Have you got ideas and plans to sort of go to different areas and get different coaches in different areas?
Yeah, that was originally the plan, and a few people interstate have sort of asked, can we, get on board and do the Ride Technics thing as maybe a franchise or something? But to be honest, that just seems like a dangerous prospect. It's a bit scary, I think, and I don't want to lose quality in what we do. And funnily enough, I've gone the other way. I've tried to just contain things and not try to get big, and because we don't want to grow and then the quality goes out, because we're spending so much time handling and managing the growth, and then the actual product goes downhill, because as I said, the product's not set. It's got to keep developing and improving.
Evolve,
and what's happened luckily is that people come to us. So I would say 35-40% of our clients are interstate. They fly down. Luckily Canberra's good enough that people want to visit.
Easy. Yeah, it's pretty easy to get to as well, isn't
it is.
Yeah.
Quick flights from Queensland, not too far from Sydney, Newcastle area. Even people from Melbourne come up.
I've had some of my guys come from Darwin.
Exactly. Yeah. Leon.
ya.
Hey, Leon. So that's
Yeah.
how it works well. You people tie it in with work trips. They
Yeah.
want to bring the family to Canberra anyway. At some point, they just go, yeah, well, we'll book it in when it works,
Yeah.
and they're not necessarily just doing a bike trip. They're doing it with other things, and then it's a win-win.
Yeah.
So we're lucky that that's sort of happened, and also that we have the trails like Stromlo here, that it is a bit of a destination, and people go, well, I've always wanted to ride Stromlo anyway. I'll go down and do Stromlo, Majura, and the other places here, and do a sort of a trail weekend amongst other stuff.
And of course, you are going up to the Snowies, aren't you? You're going up to do something up there.
Yeah, so we got ride camp once a year at Lake Krakenbach, and I do stuff at Thredbo. Obviously, there's that place for, while I like to encourage people to ride up a hill and earn the descent and get people fit, it's the lifted runs, like the chairlifts, it's
You
quality.
can't beat that vert, can you, that you can get that way?
Exactly, yeah, and then you do get bang for your buck with that skills work and that higher speed and different style of trail, and that's why we do a bit there.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's going to keep heading. I think that gravity riding and people who, again, don't have time to get fully fit still get a lot out of them without having to commit to a full training program.
Yeah. So, look, that leads into, some probably looking at just our thoughts, really, and we can have a chat about them, which is, the future of mountain biking. Because obviously in our time of riding mountain bikes, it goes a long time. I'm really old, see, so it goes a really long time. So you go, we've seen massive evolution. Where do you see mountain biking going in this next? Because there's some exciting things happening. We chatted about it before we went on air, really, and we can talk them a bit about that in a minute. But where do you see mountain biking going?
Yeah, it's a tough one, because firstly, I always think bikes aren't going to get any better. That's road and mountain bikes. You go, that's it, and then they come up with something. You go, it's crazy, yeah. So that's going to keep driving the sport.
Yeah.
And then the trail design is affected by that, right? So I think it is all headed towards bigger, faster trails, less racing. And one reason I think that the skills coaching is pretty big is that we cater for people that are just trying to improve, not necessarily for racing. They're just trying to be better at their riding, so they can have fun, maybe keep up with their mates and not drag the chain, or beat their mates. But I think that's where it's headed, is that recreational destination or buddies trip sort of thing.
Yeah, over to Rotorua or to Whistler, and be able to go there and really experience it.
Yep, down to Bright, to Canberra, whatever. There's so many destinations like this that cater for that. It's like, let's get 5 or 10 of us together, let's do a trip. And that's why I think people think events in Australia have died, like all these marathons that used to be big, thousands of people, and now they're dead. I think it's just because, one, they're not sustainable physically for people, and two, is there a big commitment. You can't just enter a race, pay $150 and then go, well, my kids have got sick, or I've got work, now I've got to bail. It's too big a thing, and it puts a pressure on. I think what balances that is an event, but with your mates, and you guys can make it the date you want and make it how you want. And then, that to me, that's the most popular style of event these days, because I'll tell you now, we get a big percentage of our sign-ups like, yep, I want to improve because we're doing a Queenstown trip next month, and I want to get better. Those trails are pretty big, stuff like that, or Rotorua or wherever, and it's pretty common. Yeah, and it's more common than people saying, I've got a race coming up, I want to improve for that. It's
look, the road's very similar with the Grand Fondos and stuff. What they are is, instead of having a result, first, second, or third focus, it's a personal.
Spot
it's that
on.
Personal challenge, and that I talk about it within coaching in terms of creating a goal focus instead of a result focus. So if your goal focus is you want to clear the downhill trail at Stromlo, then you work towards the skills to do that, and that's not for anyone else's benefit. It's not to stand on a pedestal, is it? It's just yes, I've done that.
Yep, and that's, I think, that parallel there. I've
Yeah.
seen that with mates that do Grand Fondos, and
Yeah.
now that sort of the gravel riding, that new challenge they've got, and yeah, they might have to tweak their training to match it. And I can see how the value of training programs is massive for, and including all mountain riding and the skill stuff. It's spot on that personal goal, and that's why the clients we get we get really good people, because it's that intrinsic goal
Yes.
sort of person, not
Yeah.
that I want to win this race and stand on the podium and get some prize money.
Yeah.
It's really down to earth people that just are doing stuff for the right reasons.
Yeah, yeah. So that leads us now into e-bikes. We both got views on e-bikes that we think they're the best thing since sliced bread, really. What I mean, like we were chatting about earlier, I think e-bikes have opened up cycling to a much bigger audience, and therefore they are a massive positive thing in cycling.
Oh, totally. I mean, there are always going to be issues with a new thing, like in racing categories and how they sort of govern that stuff. But to me, I've only seen positives. I've only ridden an e-bike once, but what I've seen is a lot of people, like in our group social rides that we have, people coming along that would never dream of coming along, and they get these rides with much faster fitter riders than them, and they join in and they're there the whole time at the front usually and having a blast, and people getting into the sport when they'd probably sit on the couch otherwise. And that's got them. And I know one person that has had an e-bike for a while, got them into the sport, and that got them to this fitness level when they wanted a pedal bike, and they're on a normal bike now. So to me, how's that negative,
Oh yeah, look, I totally agree. And those people that can now ride at the front with an e-bike, they probably felt intimidated to come out with the group before, but it's not because they can't ride down fast enough. It's because they couldn't keep with the group going up.
And that's another one, getting up the hill to have fun down and getting double the runs they would have otherwise.
Yeah.
I've seen, father-son rides.
Husband and wife.
Yeah, another one, exactly. It just gets people out together. I mean, I don't know why there's negativity around it. I mean, maybe because new things are scary and people are sort of, what's this going to do to affect the sport? But as long as people are sensible about it, and
they've got bums on seats, the more of them has got to be the better. Good for the bike industry as well, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the biggest growth area, I think, at the moment in
I've heard,
bike sales.
Yeah, sales are going crazy, I think.
Yeah.
So, why not?
Yeah, fantastic. Last one, really, because I suppose it sort of ties into all of the ones and things that we've chatted about, is something that we were very passionate about, but is been in a huge decline, which is that sort of whole racing side of things, XC bikes especially. We were brought up on it, and I still like taking I can't because I'm so unfit at the moment, Dylan, it's ridiculous, but I still like to ride fast on an XC bike, having that twitchiness, that lightness, and the challenge of an XC bike over technical terrain. I suppose I like it now without the race aspect. But why is racing, do you think, why is it declining? What is it that's stopping? I remember doing, and you would have raced it, I remember doing a national series in Cowan Forest, and there was multiple stages through that race. There was 400 or 500 people camped to do that race. And that was just a huge buzz, amazing.
It's funny you mentioned that race. I often talk about that one. I think I was first and Jimmy was second, so Willow was second.
Yeah.
So I remember that race well because we talked about it at one of the finish lines. It's like, we came to that campsite and this is one of the biggest races in a while. Yeah. And I think this is part of that XC sort of fizzling out thing. They called it something different. So up till then for years it was like National Series 1, 2, 3. This is the Canberra round. This is, whatever. And that race they just went, let's make it a friendly name, Tour de Dirt. And the name had been used for something else, but they just called it that. And suddenly, like 4 times the numbers or something. And I think it sort of showed how if there's no sort of serious tone to it, like the name, and you can rock up and go, actually this is just like a club race or a mass participation event that happens to give you points for a national series if you're doing that, then suddenly people aren't intimidated and they go. And I reckon that's, in my opinion, just part of the reason XC's died. It's that it got into the Olympics. It became this real elitist thing, and you know, that pointy end is the point is all that's there.
That's right. Yeah.
People only go if they are fit, and I know that because I think for 8 years now since Japan, I've gone, yeah, I'll do some marathons and stuff just because they look like a good one for the sponsors, and it's a new thing. I'll have a go, but really I wanted to race XC, as you know, I want to race nationals and pin it around a mountain for, you know, up and down as hard as you can on a hardtail, and that's, to me, I still would rather that than anything. But if you're not fit, it's just a grovel. It hurts too much. You got that repetition that people don't like. It's too serious. So I think it's only going to come back if they change how it's labelled, how slightly tweak the format, not make it shorter and harder, make it, I don't know, I don't have the answers, but it just looks like it's not what people want these days. And even the people that are fit and are keen as, maybe, yeah, it's not suiting what they're after, sort of in terms of fun. Yeah,
it's a tricky one because I know, you know, the mountain bikes are huge. Lots of people ride them. It's trying to get that. Racing's only one component of it, obviously, of mountain biking. But I know that, you know, if you look at MTBA and what have you, it's trying to get people to be a part of a group and see the value in being part of that group. You know, when it was racing, that's what you were doing. You had your mountain bike license because you were going to go and race. Very different now.
Yeah, that's right. I think they're trying to add value with other things, but yeah, and that's probably part of it. I think the cycling organisations aren't giving enough. I think they're still in that mindset that hold some events and that'll do, and give a bit of insurance. And I still don't think it's enough. We need events that cater to the people these days, which isn't necessarily XC racing. I mean, private promoters are holding good events. You've got a lot of good enduros on, some stage races that are really good. But I think, not to name names, but organisations that need to step up to the plate need to look at what actually people want, not being in that mindset of this is how it's always been. And where's the value? Like, why would you? I mean, I haven't got a license yet this year because I'm going, well, what am I getting for it? And partly because I'm not racing that much, I'm not getting a license because what else are you getting it for? But if there were just a couple more things that would make it worthwhile, you'd get that base, and then you'd have the resources to then hold events, and then it'd grow from there, I think.
Well, Dylan, look, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. It's good to see you again. I don't get to see you that often.
Likewise.
So, great to see you. And thanks very much, mate.
Thanks, buddy.
Cheers, buddy.